AlexVo, and we're finally back, and we're gonna be reacting to the murder in the Suburbs, the Lin family massacre, by truly criminal. And let's get started with this video.
The commission of a series of intentional and brutal killings of 5 members of a family, including 2 children, in their family home in the
Oh man, that's sad. 2 children and an entire family. That's like kind of like generation. Like when they grow up, there'll be more and more of the family, but that's just killing pretty much majority of the generation of that family. That kind of sad end of the day. But let's get back to the video.
early hours of the morning, whilst they were sleeping or being roused from sleep, in a single episode of brutal and calculated murderous violence, is a course of offending that can only be described as heinous in the extreme.
Yeah, that is really heinous, killing all 5 family members. Or just killing anyone in general. It's heinous, and it's kind of sad too at the same time. But people just do that randomly for fun. I know some people do it for fun. I don't know how that's fun. That's just sad, really. But let's get back to the video.
Min Lin and his wife Yun Lin, known as Lily, were doting parents, loving partners and a hard-working couple. The pair had met in Sydney after migrating from China as students. They soon married and had 3 children. 2 sons, 12-year-old Henry and 9-year-old Terry.
R.I.P to those 2 little boys there. And to the 2 parents. I'm not sure who the other person is. I guess it's probably a grandma, grandpa, or something like that. But let's get back to the video before I do anything stupid, really. But I probably should just pay attention a little bit more to the story, then probably pause.
And an older daughter, Brenda, who was 15. Brenda described her mother and father as very loving, attentive, and extremely hard-working, giving everything they could to their children. 12-year-old Henry loved sports, was a keen badminton player, and was very popular and outgoing. The youngest of the family, Terry, adored his older siblings and used to follow Brenda around everywhere. The Lin family were very close, and the siblings shared a particularly tight bond. Min and Lily worked hard to give their 3 children the best life and education they possibly.
I think that's technically with all the parents trying to make money and give it to your kids and stuff like that. It's just not. That's technically every family that will try to do the best for the kids. But let's get back to the video.
Could. Min set up the Epping Central news agency in 2002, which became a fast-growing and lucrative business, turning over more than $1 million a year. The news agency was
$1 million a year. That's pretty good for what they were doing. Actually, that's not bad.
Was always bustling and busy, and the Lin family quickly became very well known and respected within the local community. The family lived on Boundary Road, in a nice suburb of North Epping. Lily's sister Irene also moved into Boundary Road with them. Irene worked part-time at the news agency to help Min and Lily. Min had bought his parents, Yang Fei Lin and Fei Qing Zhu, a new home about a 30-minute drive away from them. Min and Lily also lived a short walk away from Min's sister Kathy, her husband Lian Binzi, known as Robert, who was previously an ear, nose and throat specialist in China, and their son. Both Robert and Kathy migrated to Australia in 2002. On Friday the 17th of July, the Lin family went to Min and Kathy's parents' house for dinner. This was a regular weekly gathering, and everyone apart from Brenda was there, as she was away on a school excursion. Henry's grandmother asked him to stay over that night.
Well, I guess Brenda was kind of lucky because she was on the trip and stuff like that. If she was at home, she could have been the sixth person to be dead too as well, probably. I'm not 100% sure what the killer would have been doing, but let's get back to the video.
However, he declined due to having plans with his uncle Robert the following day to play badminton. Min left his parents' home at around 9 p.m. to deliver some newspapers for the following morning. Eventually, the whole family headed back to their home on Boundary Road. Early the following day, chatter amongst locals started. Min's news agency was unusually closed, and the newspapers had mounted up outside the store without being taken.
Yeah, that would have probably made it really suspicious because that's a lot of newspaper out there. People probably know that there's something wrong. Something happened to the family, especially if they're not at work or something, because they're probably at work every single day and they see them all the time. So especially new customers or customers like old original customers, they'll know if something's going on here. But
in. It was a busy Saturday morning, and Min not opening his agency without any warning was a cause for concern.
for me, if I've seen that person, I'll be concerned too. If I haven't seen them for a couple hours, because I know they're working at this time and they always been working all their life, like for 20 years. You kind of technically will know their schedule and stuff like that, their routine as well. Yeah, I'll probably be concerned and probably maybe just call the police and see, maybe if the person, you never know, they could be missing, they could have been murdered, or even maybe if they're lucky, maybe they went on a road trip but didn't really tell anyone. But most of the time, that's not it. But let's get back to the video though.
From a worried customer asking what was going on. Following this, Kathy and her husband Robert headed straight over to the Lin family home, less than a 5-minute walk away. At around 9 a.m, they reached the house and found the door was unlocked. Downstairs, everything appeared as expected. Nothing was disturbed. But the house was eerily silent. And no one was responding to Kathy and Robert's calls. Heading up to the second floor, however, it was a very different story. They were met with a terrifying sight. In the master bedroom lay Lily's body. She had been bludgeoned to death and the room was full of blood. Upon making their way through the rest of the upstairs floor, each room had an equally horrifying scene. Irene's body was found in her room, slumped against her bed. Min and Lily's 2 young sons, Henry and Terry, were also found dead in their bedroom across the corridor. Blood completely covered the walls, floors, and ceilings in each room.
And they really got brutally beaten for sure. This person, whoever murdered the Lin family, really must have hated them so badly. But let's continue the video here.
And the crime scene and the murders would go down as one of the most brutal in Australian history.
My name is Leslie. My favorite thing about the Grilled Chicken Club is the grilled chicken. Like, it's actually been...
Min Lin, however, was nowhere to be found. Kathy dialed 000 for an ambulance.
Hello, I need an ambulance to 55A Boundary Road.
What
Epping
suburb?
North?
So it's 55A Boundary Road, Epping North, and it's a house?
Yeah, yeah.
What's the problem?
Yeah, the house,
What's wrong?
yeah. Hello?
What's wrong? What's wrong?
I'm not sure someone, I think I'm not sure.
You need to tell me why you need an ambulance. What's wrong?
Yeah, I think someone died. I'm not sure.
Why do you think someone's dying?
I don't know.
You need to tell me something. You're asking for an ambulance, but why?
Yeah, I also need a place, please.
Yeah, why? What's wrong? What is wrong? Don't scream. Just answer my question.
Yeah, I need it because I have someone to be killed. I'm
Is
not
someone
sure.
bleeding? Is someone unconscious?
I think so they died.
Why? Why?
I'm not sure, but maybe someone killed my brother's family.
Why do you think that?
I need someone to come quick.
Yeah, we are coming. You need to stop screaming and tell me what the problem is.
Someone killed my brother Sunday.
Why do you think that?
Yeah, because I went to his house and I knocked the door and the door is just closed and I opened it. And then up the stairs, find my brother. I couldn't find it. I'm not sure.
Where's your brother? Are they on?
Listen to the operator. This one. Definitely not a good operator. I believe he ended up getting fired probably a couple years later, but this operator suck as hell. But let's continue.
On the ground?
No, they're the bedroom. They're all the bedroom.
Are they,
Like, you know, this woman's going through something, seeing this horrific crime scene, and then this guy, goddamn, sucks as an operator. But let's continue here.
are they in the house? Is your brother in the house?
I'm not sure.
We are driving there. Answer my questions, please. Have you found a body?
I'm at my brother's home.
Have you found a body?
Just quick.
We are driving there. Don't say quick. Tell me what's wrong. Have you seen your brother?
I'm not sure.
No, it's yes or no. Can you see him?
No.
Is he in?
Like, how would you see if the freaking... Okay. Man, that operator sucks. I could definitely tell because why the hell are you getting angry over a freaking phone call? Like, you're not the one who's seeing this crime scene. You're not the one who's in pain and shit. Man, God, no wonder why he got fired.
The house. Can you see their bodies?
Yeah, I saw.
Towards the end of the call, a hysterical Kathy could be heard pleading with her husband Robert, begging him not to leave her alone in the house. She was heard saying in Cantonese, "I am more scared than you are." But Robert insisted he had to go and pick up hers and her brother's parents, leaving a frantic...
Why would he need to do that, though? Like, why would you need to leave to pick... Like, couldn't you call someone else to pick them up? Wow, you see this horrible crime scene? Like, really, dude?
Kathy in the house, alone. Police and paramedics arrived on scene and were met with Kathy at the front door, screaming for help. Min was still unaccounted for, but on Kathy's advice, the police did a further search of the master bedroom and looked.
I think it's kind of obvious the murderer trying to probably frame it onto the father, and it looks like he murder-suicide kind of thing, where he killed his entire family, and then he went into that shaft or barn or whatever you like to call it, and then shot himself and make it look like he's the one who actually did the murder. But let's continue here.
Who had met the same terrible end as his family. Robert, Kathy, Yang Fei Lin and Feng Qing Zhu were taken to hospital to be treated for shock. A short while later, Brenda, still away on her trip, decided to log into Facebook to catch up with things back home. Tragically, she learned what had happened to her family shortly after.
Man, that sucks for her to just hear the news, and when you try to check in on Facebook and you see all this news and you see this probably photo of your house, man, that gotta suck.
After signing in. People began messaging her asking if she was okay and sending her articles that showed pictures of her house. At first, she thought they were all playing some sort of sick joke, but her school arranged for her to travel back to Sydney.
We all wish they play jokes, but these murderers don't play jokes. But let's continue.
Sydney on the first available flight. After landing, she was met with Kathy and police officers, who confirmed the horrific news. The last time Brenda had seen her family was when her father dropped her off a few days prior to begin her school excursion. Not wanting to draw attention to anything in front of her friends, she and her father awkwardly said goodbye and parted ways. Brenda said, "To this day, my biggest regret was not hugging and telling him I loved him."
That sucks. Yeah, sometimes you kind of want to regret stuff that you've done, but I feel bad for her because technically when she comes back, the first thing she hears is about her family getting murdered and stuff like that. Kind of sad. So she didn't get to really say goodbye to her father.
Strikeforce No Burn was a secret operation that was implemented to investigate the 5 murders, and pressure was on to solve a case that had become very high profile very quickly. The deaths of the Lin family started dominating the media, with all outlets keen to get the next scoop or lead on the case. It was initially reported that it may have been a murder-suicide, and the police said this was a possibility.
Yeah, because the way it looked like, because where the father was actually, because he was outside in that shaft or barn, like it kind of looked like it, but let's continue here.
That was being investigated. But judging by the severe injuries sustained from the lengthy attacks, and the fact that the injuries were consistent across all 5 people in the house, this theory was quickly ruled out.
Yeah, they got brutally beaten, so it should definitely rule it out, because the person tried to make it look like a murder-suicide, but, you know, all the beating and stuff like that, I don't think the father could even do that, but let's continue.
Investigators noted several things about the crime scene. It appeared that whoever had gained access to the house knew the layout and was very comfortable with their surroundings.
Yeah, it had to be someone they knew, because personally, if you're a murderer, like, they probably won't even notice the layout of this house technically, but let's continue here.
There were no signs of a break-in, and nothing appeared to have been ransacked or stolen.
Yeah, wouldn't you be stealing stuff if you're trying to rob or something like that? Something will be missing, but it doesn't look like it.
The power to the house had been cut from the outside. Police quickly determined that due to there being no signs of a forced entry, whoever the killer was most likely had a key to the property. 15-year-old Brenda's bedroom was completely untouched, and
So that's the thing right there. If it's untouched, so someone knew that Brenda at this point wasn't home, so the only person will be Robert, because he's the one that also works with the father and the family and stuff like that. He works with them, and then he probably does have the keys to probably that house. So the way it does look like more Robert than anything else. It can't be any like random stranger, because they won't. Why would a random stranger be going to the house and killing 5 family members? And not steal technically kind of anything, but let's go.
Like the other bedrooms, which showed blood on all the door handles, her door handle was clean. This further fueled the police's theory that whoever had committed the crime knew the family and therefore knew Brenda was not there, deliberately avoiding that specific room. It was also determined that it was likely the killer had been wearing gloves due to the way the blood was smeared and spread. Officers quickly concluded that there was only one perpetrator, and although there were 24 bloody footprints found, they were all the same size and make of shoe. The prints were between a US size 8.5 and a 10. The family were all so disfigured from the attacks that forensic analysis had to be used to formally identify them. It was determined that the murders had taken place between 2 and 5:30 a.m. Police believe that Min and Lily were killed first and Irene was killed after, before the killer went into the young boy's room last. Detectives concluded that the two...
I forgot, who is Irene? Okay, let's get back to the video. I didn't mean to pause it there, but let's continue here.
Young brothers most likely woke up after hearing their parents and aunt be...
Okay, now I'll try to figure, like, who was the 5th person. So it's the aunt in there too as well. So the 2 boys, the aunt, the father, and the mother. Okay, so now I get who the 5th person is. So let's continue.
Due to the blood splatter analysis and the position the boys were found in on the floor, they had fought for their lives with everything they had. Henry was killed with 3 blows to the head. Terry was the only one not killed instantly, and potentially stayed alive for up to 2 hours after the attack, which...
Oh, damn. Even 2 hours after the attack. Damn. That's one really brave boy there, but I guess it kind of sucks that he did not survive.
Ultimately saw him struck 6 times. Blunt force trauma was listed as the cause of death, and with 4 out of the 5 victims, asphyxiation was also a contributing factor. A distinct pattern was visible on the family's faces, and a forensic pathologist determined that a hammer-like object with a rope around it was the murder weapon they were looking for. It was likely that the killer wrapped the rope around their wrist during the attacks. Over the following days, police brought Robert and Kathy in for interviews.
My sister lying, maybe part of bodies out of bed, and also the beside that one is, I think it's maybe my brother, but I can't see any hand, leg, or head, or any part of my brother's body.
One was, did you regard me as a friend?
Yes.
When I first came to Australia, I didn't know anything about this country. For example, I don't know how to go to one place to another, or I don't know how to say the address. In this case, I would ask me to help me, and he was quite happy to help me. For example, when we bought a car, my wife cannot use her name to buy a car, so we use Ming's name to register car.
Yeah. Such things.
And just to confirm, Ming's parents only have the two children? Is there?
Yep. Only two.
There's no one else that we've left out?
No.
Robert, is there anything that you can tell me about Henry and Terry? Were they part of, did they go to swimming, or did they play soccer, or did they have activities, or was there did they just have a family life with Min and with you and your parents-in-law?
Henry is quite a more open-minded child. He would love to get along with other people. He liked to play tennis and...
I don't know, I was thinking maybe skipping part of this, the interrogation and stuff like that, them asking questions, but well, let's continue for a little bit, we'll see.
With me.
Robert held his head in his hands through most of the interviews, crying and staring down at the table. Through his translator, he told the police that he and his wife Kathy had left hers and Min's parents' house the previous night. When they got back home, he'd watched sports before having a bath at around 2 a.m. After this, he headed to bed. He then
who the hell takes a bath at 2 a.m. in the morning? I don't remember anyone taking a shower at 2 a.m. in the morning, but that's like... What? 2 a.m. though? Most of the time people are sleeping 2 a.m. in the morning. Maybe if you're working really, really early, but I don't see 2 a.m. though. Watching sports, then taking a shower at 2 a.m. But let's continue though.
Described the following day.
I'm homesick.
I can see everywhere was red. I think I saw my sister-in-law first. Once I saw her, I hold Kathy and I said, Kathy, don't look at it. And I saw that the bedside, which is close to the door, I saw this side. I saw a staff, a group of staff. I think it was her brother. Like
a pile.
Yeah, a pile stuff. I always think that her brother was in as well because I saw her car. I saw his van. So we went out from the room. I went out with Kathy. We ran to the other room. I saw the terrace room I indicated before. Used to be terrace room. The door was closed. Kathy pushed open the door. We saw Irene on the bed. I tried to touch her. I went closer. I tried to touch her because I want to know whether she was still alive. Because when I saw her, she was not just lie down on the bed flatly. So I want to try. But Kathy hold me back. So I think I did not actually touch her. We reached the last bedroom. The door was half closed. we enter the room, we can see both children were lying on the floor. Kathy held me back and she kept yelling, let's go, let's go. She was so frightening. I was afraid as well.
How you and your family have been able to cope with something that no family in this country can possibly imagine you've had to go through. How difficult that has been.
At this moment, I don't know how to say, but I feel everyone support us and care us and love us. I want to say thank you very much.
How important has that been, Kathy, for you to know that everybody cares so much for what you're going through?
All the people love us, care us, and support us. We feel we need to be strong to do the best as soon as possible.
I mean, I kind of feel bad for them, especially doing the interviews, stuff like that, when they're like, come on, man. Just, like, I wish, just leave them alone. Let them process all this stuff. But Robert, though, I don't know about him, really. But Kathy, kind of feel bad for her more likely, but let's continue here.
Any appeal you can say now? Asking for anybody who can help.
Yeah, like police say that they need more information, even very small clue to help them to solve the case. If anyone can help, please contact the police.
Struggling with acne? Recommended by 90,000 dermatologists worldwide. La Roche-Posay.
3 weeks after the family were killed, business at the Epping Central News Agency resumed. Kathy and Robert took over the ownership of the store and became Brenda's legal guardians. Robert offered to adopt Brenda a matter of hours after her parents were found. The funeral for the Lin family was held in August. Hundreds of mourners turned up to...
This happened actually in August. And right now we're technically actually in August, so technically kind of their almost anniversary for their technically murders. So R.I.P to them. So that kind of sucks. That's sad as well. Like the anniversary is pretty soon, I'm guessing. I forgot what date this actually happened to them, but still sad either way. So I wish Brenda, hopefully she's doing really, really well in life now, since that technically her entire family was murdered. But let's continue here.
Their respects, including the children's school, and the police looking after the investigation. The outpouring of grief was immense. A trust fund was set up to help Brenda with her future education, and the public came out in force to show their support for the family. As well as family and friends of the Lins, the community wanted answers and justice too. Strikeforce Noburn and the investigating team began to draw some conclusions. The lack of a break-in indicated the killer had a key, and the fact this person knew the layout of the house, including how to cut the power from the outside. The killer's...
And the only person is technically Roberts at this point, because who else know the family and technically live close by? It's only Robert and Kathy technically, so I don't think a random stranger will just randomly find that house. But let's continue here.
Knowledge that Brenda was not home, hence the reason her room was left.
That too, like how would that murderer random stranger will know if Brenda is home or not? Because technically, wouldn't they still open the door with the blood? They'll still check in if they're a random stranger. The only person who probably knows Brenda is not home is technically Robert's Kathy too as well at the same time, but
left undisturbed, and the shoe prints that covered the house pointed to just one person: Robert. The 000 call Kathy had made to authorities that morning also added more weight to this case. During the call, Kathy could be heard talking in Cantonese, begging Robert not to leave her alone in the house. For all anybody knew, the killer may...
Yeah, that's the thing though. I think I said that earlier. Why did he need to leave, really? And also to pick up his parents? You could have had someone else actually pick them up. You could call another family member to pick them up actually. But that's the thing right there. Like, why does he need to leave? Like, try to hide his technically weapon, like probably try to hide his murder weapons and stuff like that somewhere else. So that maybe he didn't even pick up his parents. Probably did something else too while maybe driving to pick them up. Get rid of all the evidence. That's what it seems like to me.
Still have been lying in wait somewhere, or may have potentially come back at any time. Despite her pleas, Robert left her for an hour to pick up her parents. Police can...
An hour? Yeah, you have a lot of time to get rid of your stuff there in an hour. Jesus Christ. Was that a long drive to pick them up? Was he driving to the airport or something? The house that far? God damn.
Concluded that only he would have known for definite that his wife was no longer in danger of meeting the same end as her family, hence the reason he left her. It was also alleged that when Kathy and Robert first went to the Lin family home at 9 AM that morning, Robert told Kathy, "Don't look," before they could even see anything, indicating he...
So he's been there. That's the thing. Like, why would you say that even before anything actually happened? Or she opened the door and stuff like that. Like, this makes it even more obvious it's technically Robert.
Already knew the scene that lay ahead. But police needed more before they could make an arrest. As Brenda was now living with Kathy and Robert, police set up pinhole surveillance cameras inside the couple's home. They had conducted a risk assessment to determine whether or not Robert posed any threat towards Brenda. And ultimately they determined he did not. Robert would have known Brenda's schedule, and therefore could have easily waited for her to come home before carrying out the murders, but he didn't. Further analysis of the Lin's house found that the bloody shoe prints at the scene were from a make of A6 trainer, the same trainers that Robert could be seen wearing in old photographs. Observing more from within Robert and Kathy's home, police made another big link to the shoes in question. Robert was seen on one of the cameras talking to Kathy at the dining table. Whilst talking, he could be seen cutting a box into small pieces. He then soaked the pieces in a bucket before flushing them down the toilet. The box was an A6 trainer's shoe box.
Yeah, that technically makes it even more obvious, right? Try to get rid of more evidence. Why would you need to do that in the toilet? If I was him, if he was picking up his parents, why didn't he get rid of those two as well at the same time? But...
And the shoes in question were found out to be a men's US 9.5. Robert also made a curious phone call to a detective. He phoned to clarify something he may have said back when the Lin family were discovered. He said he may have told a police officer at the scene that there were 5 bodies inside the house, but he claimed what he meant to say was that there were 4 or 5 bodies, and that he was phoning to...
Why would he know it's 5 or 4 bodies? Because technically, no one would. Only the murderer would technically know that. So, Robert, you're not making it any better on yourselves. You're making it more easier for the police to find out it's you.
To clear this statement up, this only added more to the police's case. Although Min was the last to be found
you technically helped the police even more, since, like, why would you say 4 or 5 bodies and a murderer person would not know that? Oh, well, a murderer person would know that, like an innocent person wouldn't. But for him, like, he had to say it, right? So it makes it more suspicious, technically on him at this point. I know the story. It is him. But yes, Robert, you're not that great of a guy, man.
Inside the house, police believed it was obvious that Robert knew exactly where he was, and had slipped up when he said 5 bodies, during a time when the 5th victim couldn't be accounted for. It wasn't long before police...
Didn't find the father in a little, maybe a couple hours later or something like that. Maybe not that quickly, but yeah, why would there be 5 bodies? Yeah, he freaking probably told that on himself, technically on the recording, or to the detective, so he kind of told on himself, really.
Police began a thorough search of Robert and Kathy's home and seized Robert's car. The couple had both confirmed in previous interviews that on the morning the family were discovered, they had both been up early. Robert told the police he had spent the morning in his garage. Knowing this, police were keen to search that particular space. During the search of the garage, a stain was found on the floor, and this was labelled up as stain number 91. Experts believe this was a transfer stain, and it contained a mixture of DNA. It was quickly sent away for testing. After the results came back, it was concluded that stain 91 contained DNA from 4 out of the 5 victims. It matched 9-year-old Terry with a 1 in 50 quadrillion chance of the DNA belonging to anyone else. Following this huge discovery, at 9 a.m. on May 5, 2011, Robert Z was arrested for the murder of his extended family. He applied for bail, but this was denied. Although Kathy had confirmed Robert's alibi for that night, saying he didn't leave their bed, it is believed that Robert sedated her before leaving early that morning, sometime after 2 a.m. He then headed over to the Lin's house with a key that had been cut. It was also concluded that Robert killed each member of the family in the order in which they presented a threat for resistance or detention. It is thought that the 2 boys and Irene were collateral damage or secondary victims who may have woken up when Min and Lily were being killed. Police phone...
That's sad, but at the end of the day, like, even if he killed the parents by himself, that just killed those 2 is still sad. At the end of the day, he still murders someone. So let's continue here.
Phoned Brenda's school, and she was quickly pulled into the principal's office and told the news about her uncle's arrest. Brenda's principal, Susan, said she herself had become suspicious of Robert when she witnessed him reducing Brenda to tears in the schoolyard. She said, he was so physically close to her, speaking loudly, rapidly in Chinese. Brenda with her head down, tears falling down. It was clear that he was trying to get her to agree to something. I told my husband, I think I've just spent all day with a murderer. I just got a gut feeling he was dangerous, and I was very worried for Brenda's safety. Susan was so...
Yeah, I would probably think that too. I'd be afraid too for Brenda, since you were talking to a murderer for sure.
Concerned that she eventually persuaded Brenda to obtain a lawyer. Brenda's lawyer soon began to suspect Robert as well. At this time, Brenda did not think it was possible that her uncle could have ever been involved. For a lot of people, the motive remained unclear. It was initially thought that Robert's motive stemmed from nothing more than jealousy and greed. Since coming to Sydney...
It could be, but at the end of the day, I think it could be also for money or something like that, or just taking the business over, because I think he probably didn't have any, and probably his business probably got closed down or something like that, or bankrupt or something. Something wrong went with his business, so you probably want to take over the Lin's family business because he couldn't run anything else. But let's continue.
He had been virtually unemployed after a restaurant venture he had failed. Police also found no evidence to suggest that he was actually an ear, nose and throat specialist back in China.
Damn, he was a throat specialist. He's not even... Oh, wow. That makes it even worse, right? That he probably isn't even any of those stuff probably you was lying through.
His brother-in-law Min was a successful businessman by this point, and police believed that Robert's jealousy of Min consumed him. Robert believed he was entitled to respect and admiration from his extended family, but felt he was denied it.
Oh, why? Like, you didn't even earn any respects. Like, you didn't do anything, but probably failed pretty much a lot of his stuff too, probably.
Because of the attention given to Min.
3.5 years on from the Lin murders, the brother-in-law of one of the victims has been ordered to stand trial.
In December 2012, Robert was committed to stand trial. Some of the DNA evidence was still in the process of being tested, and the trial was delayed and pushed back. But in May 2014, the trial of Robert Z began. He pled not guilty. Since July 2011, Robert had been sharing details with a fellow inmate, who subsequently reported this back to police. The informant took the stand to testify against Robert in exchange for a reduced sentence.
Of course, there's always all those informants try to get reduced sentence and stuff like that, but for Roberts, I wish the informant beat him up, but that did not happen.
The inmate, known as Witness A, said that Robert had told him he had bought a hammer, which was the murder weapon, from a $2 shop, as he knew the CCTV cameras in the shop were fake. He also alleged that Robert had said he'd planned to steal a dead man's DNA from a funeral home and plant it on the murder weapon. Witness A said Robert told him that on the night of the murder he had sedated Kathy before leaving the house. Despite Witness A pushing Robert to find out where the murder weapon was, to this day it has never been located. It is thought that on the morning Robert drove to pick up Yang Fei Lin and Feng Qingzhi.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like, he was trying to get rid of all the evidence of the murder weapons and stuff like that, since he was picking up the father, or like their parents or whatever it was, his parents or something like that. So yeah.
He took the murder weapon with him and disposed of it along the way. Robert's defense team stated
that's a creepy picture. Man, oh, punchable face.
That it would have been impossible for one person to commit all 5 murders and escape unharmed. They also argued that Robert was not the only person living in Australia that wore size 9.5 A6 trainers. They stated that there was potentially 3 different sets of shoe prints at the crime scene, not just one. During the trial, Brenda, who was faced with all of the evidence against her uncle, said she finally had to accept the reality of what he had done to her family. Brenda's identity was kept hidden during the trials. She spoke to her lawyer and gave him evidence that added even more to an already shocking story. She told her lawyer, and later the New South Wales Supreme Court, that Robert had sexually assaulted her on a number of occasions.
Oh, god damn, that's your own uncle doing that to you, or technically anyone doing that to you. Oh, come on, that's just even more nasty, doing it to a family member. Oh yeah, technically Robert is really want to punch him in the face, but he's probably suffering enough at this point.
Before the murders. After she moved in with him and Kathy, the assaults began to escalate. The Lin family estate, which likely would have gone to Brenda, was now being controlled by Robert and Kathy, and Robert evicted Min and Kathy's parents from the home that Min had bought for them. This added more weight to the theory that he was so fixated with Brenda, he did everything in his power to make sure she would be left with no choice but to move in with him and Kathy. While observing the family through pinhole cameras, police did observe Robert touching Brenda in what they called an uncomfortable way.
God damn, really? That's really nasty. Oh, man. Anybody in prison over there could beat him up. Thank you.
But police said the touching they observed didn't amount to molestation. Brenda's grandfather, Yang Fei Lin, told the court that he had seen Robert staring into Brenda's bedroom during the early hours one morning. The juries in all of the trials knew Brenda's evidence, but journalists could not publish anything that identified her. She was referred to as Miss A.B. After Brenda told the courtroom about the abuse she had suffered, she said that her Aunt Kathy began sending Brenda messages, proclaiming that Robert had been framed by the police, and that everyone had it all wrong.
Frame? Yeah, right. It's so obvious. But then again, because that's technically her husband.
Brenda spoke of how disappointed she was in Kathy's reaction. After the accounts of sexual abuse were brought to light in the courtroom, Justice Johnson declared a mistrial. A new trial had to be set for August 2014.
As the Crown opened its case today for the second time, the jury heard a chilling...
So August 2014, so that's technically 7 years ago. Damn.
version of what took place on the night of their deaths.
The Crown alleges Robert Z was consumed with intense hatred and bitterness when he killed 5 members of his own family. The court was told yesterday there would be an allegation of sexual abuse of a young female by a close male relative. The Crown is yet to expand on that and a conversation Z allegedly had with a fellow inmate at Long Bay Jail.
For 50 years, National University has championed affordable, accessible, achievable higher.
On the first day of the second trial, the prosecution presented a new theory behind Robert's motive. As well as his jealousy of Min, he evidently had a disturbing sexual obsession with Min's daughter Brenda. But unfortunately, not long into the second trial, Justice Peter Johnson fell ill, and the trial again was postponed. 6 months later, in February 2015, Robert's third trial began. Justice Elizabeth Fullerton was now presiding, and the trial went on to last for 10 months. The jury took 19 days to deliberate. However, they could not reach a unanimous verdict, and it was again declared a mistrial.
Really? They couldn't.
Justice Fullerton granted Robert bail while he awaited his next trial. After almost 5 years behind bars without a conviction, he was fitted with an electronic monitor and allowed back home.
The wife of Robert C., the man accused of killing 5 members of the Lin family, has just spoken of her joy at him being released on bail in time for Christmas. The 51-year-old has spent nearly 5 years behind bars after he was charged with the 2009 murders.
The greatest Christmas present. But anyway, thank you. I need to go to visit him now.
Oh, you're going to go to
yeah.
him now?
Yeah.
What will you say to him when you see him?
I love him.
Makes me don't want... technically. Makes me don't really like Kathy, but at the end of the day, that's her husband, so... Yeah, she could be happy at all she wants, but we all know what Roberts did.
In June 2016, the fourth and what would be the final trial began, with Justice Fullerton still presiding, and 8 months later, in February 2017, the jury had reached their verdict.
About time, so that happened 4 years ago with this verdict.
5 members of the same family were beaten to death as they lay in their beds in Sydney's suburban north. The victims included boys aged 9 and 12. Today, a jury has convicted the children's uncle, the prosecution arguing that Robert C. was motivated by greed and resentment.
Robert was found guilty by a majority verdict of 11-1. Kathy and Min's parents said they were happy with the
who's that one person? God damn, dude.
Verdict they had waited so long for.
The commission of a series of intentional and brutal killings of 5 members of a family, including 2 children, in their family home in the early hours of the morning whilst they were sleeping or being roused from sleep, in a single episode of brutal and calculated murderous violence, is a course of offending that can only be described as heinous in the extreme. Would you stand up, please? Lin Bin Robert Z, on counts 1 to 5 on the indictment, you are convicted of the murders of Min Norman Lin, Yun Lee Lily Lin, Yun Bin Irene Lin, Henry Lin and Terry Lin. On each count, you are sentenced to imprisonment for life.
Justice Fullerton said of Brenda,
which he really deserves to be in prison for life.
I acknowledge the profound grief she has suffered and continues to suffer. While the law does not permit a sentencing judge to take into account any additional penalty because a family member of a murder victim has suffered through their death, in this case the far-reaching and immeasurable harm done is also an aspect of the harm done to the community, and, for that reason, I also take that into account when imposing life sentences in this case. Robert was given 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. It would be years before the suppression order that concealed Brenda's identity was lifted, when she agreed to appear in an exclusive interview with Channel 7. Robert's wife Kathy still believes he is innocent and said that he is a caring man.
And of course, she'll believe that. Technically, wouldn't you support your husband and stuff like that? Or it could be the opposite way too as well. But, who knows? Maybe she isn't innocent at all. She maybe could have been there too herself.
Who would never hurt the family. Kathy and Min's parents, however, agree with the rulings and believe that Robert is now where he belongs, saying, "He is not a human being. He is a monster."
Yep, he is definitely a monster. And doing the stuff to Brenda too, that's just sick. But
Robert appealed his sentences in June 2020, but in 2021, after just 10 minutes at the New South Wales Criminal Appeals Court, 3 judges dismissed his appeal.
thank goodness. Dismissed that completely. Jesus Christ, he doesn't deserve appeal, really.
In her interviews, Brenda Lin said she is still trying to rebuild her life as best she can. She credits her amazing family with making her the person she is today, and she said she is forever grateful for how the community came together to help her. She wants to make sure she
That's a good thing. At least the community kind of helping her, so that's pretty awesome there.
carries on doing all the things she knows her family would have wanted her to do, and said she hopes in the future she is able to do something to help other people and give back to everyone that supported her.
But technically this is going to be the end of the video here. R.I.P to all the Lin family here. R.I.P to them. That's a pretty amazing photo there. So, and for Brenda, hopefully she is having an amazing life now, since she's been through probably a lot. So at least Roberts is in prison now, so she doesn't have to deal with him anymore. One day, hopefully he gets beat up in there, because, you know, in United States, some of these prison people don't like child murder or murdering females too as well, or anything like that. So I hope he gets beat up in the prison cell one of these days to make it even better. But then again, can't be wishing anything really, right? So hopefully we just want to wish some good karma and stuff like that will actually end up happening. But this is gonna be it for me. I'll see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.